Hello, I'm Jared, and welcome back to my channel. Why am I wearing a cowboy hat? You might ask. There's no good reason. I just was wearing a fancy shirt and I thought it looked cool. Anyways, it doesn't take much guesswork to realize that I myself am a big fan of analog horror, found footages, and pretty much anything internet creepy related, if you couldn't tell by the content on this channel and my other channels. So when I found out that Animal Planet has done a found footage horror series in the early 2000s, I had to go watch it. The Animal Planet Lost Tape series involves things like the Chupacabra, Bigfoot, the Loch Ness Monster, Mothman, Wendigoon, and all sorts of other creepy and unnerving cryptid encounters, all of them being recorded in a found footage mockumentary type of video. So this is the bizarre, but pretty neat found footage series from Animal Planet. In July of 1999, the most famous found footage movie ever released to theaters, The Blair Witch Project. You've all heard of it, or at least seen footage from it. Admittingly, the movie was met with mixed reviews at the time, but over the past 20 years, it's gained a cult following, with some people even claiming it to be the best horror movie of all time. Now, I myself am a massive, gargantuan fan of the Blair Witch Project, and that probably led to me liking analog horror and found footage horror. But the Blair Witch Project unknowingly awoke a beast inside of hundreds of millions of fans that they indeed did like found footage. It's the found footage beast. They woke it up. Only a couple movies of note were in this style before the Blair Witch Project. There was the Cannibal Hologram, which I can't say the title because I think YouTube doesn't like those words. And then later on in 1992, there was Man Bites Dog. And these are really the only two found footage movies ever released, neither of them being near as popular as the Blair Witch Project. That movie gained worldwide popularity, partly due to the internet, partly due to marketing. There's a ton of reasons. I'll link the Dead Meat video on it if you haven't seen it. Super dope. So it was no surprise when a few years later, in October of 2008, Animal Planet released the first of many episodes of this Lost Tape series, starting with the Lost Tape of the Chupacabra. There went on to be 34 episodes of the Lost Tape series, totaling 3 seasons in 2 years. I'll be going over most of them in this video, so stick around if you enjoy it. Let me just hop right into the video, and let's examine some of this downright unnerving imagery that Animal Planet, of all things, used. Lost Tapes was a series produced by Go Go Lucky Entertainment that featured found footages of harrowing, terrifying cryptid encounters. In the first season of the series, most of the episodes included brief rundowns of each entity and cryptid that was being covered before getting into the actual meat and potatoes of the episode. These summaries would include talks with experts on whatever cryptid this was, and these people would speak about theories and folklore and witness statements and testimonies and the other facts that were surrounding this cryptid. However, in the second season of the show, Animal Planet opted for a change in intro. These new episodes are when the found footage horror really came to play, because they now started from the very beginning of the episode with a footage or a recording of that person being attacked and murdering a person, and these cryptids would be like eating these people. Honestly, these new intros were a perfect way to establish the tone for the episode. If you're gonna have an episode about a horrifying Mothman encounter, you better show it swooping down and grabbing somebody, you know? It's kind of like how YouTube works. Anyways, these bombastic intros would stick around for the rest of the series. The first 5 episodes of the show were in the following order: Chupacabra, Bigfoot, Monster of Monterey, Swamp Creature, and finally the Oklahoma Octopus. I give them points for creativity. As for the actual episodes themselves, they all followed a specific pattern, which typically regarded the human characters. Each episode kind of went like this. An individual, or multiple individuals, would find themselves lost in a deep or remote part of the woods. These areas were either hard to escape or impossible to escape, which gave into the tension of the episode more. After this, they would come across the cryptid that the episode was about. They would pan over to whatever it was, and you could see the shadowy outline of the shadow was. On some occasions, the audience really couldn't even see what the cryptid was. It was kind of meant to be like a guessing game, even though the title of the episode would have given it away. Oftentimes, the episodes followed the Blair Witch format, where you could hear whatever it was running around and snarling and darting around, but not actually see it. And just watching these intros to the episodes, it's so reminiscent of how YouTube videos are to this day, but it's also painfully from the early 2000s. Everything about it is like something you'd watch in school. It's theorized that you couldn't really see the cryptids a lot in these found footages at the beginning due to like budgetary constraints, because they didn't want to show an awful production, of course. But later on, when there was more views and more popularity of the series, they started to get kind of bold. And in the first season's finale, the Hellhound episode, they just showed a hellhound with no CGI to back it up or no darkness to cover it, just literally an actual hellhound on screen, which is pretty cool. Now, following the hellhound being shown, Go Go Lucky Entertainment decided to pretty much start showing the cryptids more and more, even though it would probably take away some of the scare factor, some of the intrinsic value. It's more entertaining to know something's there and not see it, but if you keep getting just like a jump scare over and over, then it's gonna get desensitized to you. Well, I don't think Go Go Lucky Entertainment really cared. Finally, in the third season, pretty much there was just cryptids galore, and there was clear shots of them, and it was pretty much the same exact formula over and over again. And by this time, the audience had enough. Some people said the cryptids looked incredibly fake. Some people were just mad that they were showing them. And sometimes it was obvious that it was just a person in a costume. Like, there was no shaky effects. It was literally just a dude running around in a costume. We'll touch more on the reception of the show, though, later. But I want to get into the actual episodes first. The rest of the episodes of the first season were as follows: the Devil Dragon, the Cave Demons, Death Raptor, Megaconda, Thunderbird, Skinwalker, Mothman, of course, Deathworm, and then finally the Hellhound. The scariest of which being the Mothman and the Cave Demons, of course. While these videos might look, silly as we take a retrospective look in the modern time, this show traumatized an entire generation of people who watched it. Thousands of kids thought this footage was real. They thought that if they went out into the woods, they would get attacked by a skinwalker, or if they went into a cave demon would jump down and grab them, or somehow a Mothman would scoop down and grab them and pick them up and fly them away. But the scariest episode amongst fans is by far Season 2, Episode 1, The Vampire. This is when the series upped its video production quality, and the vampire genuinely terrified a lot of people. The plot to most of these episodes was as I described. It typically just follows somebody doing something and then getting attacked by the creature, and then these experts coming in and giving their 2 cents. But the reason the vampire episode is so scary is because the vampire would attack people in their own homes. And specifically, the Redding family in this episode was tormented by this vampire. I mean, it literally grabs one of the kids of the Redding family and just rips him away. These footages and episodes obviously have, campy and terrible acting, but I think it adds to the charm, just like several reviews are going to say when I'll get into this later. Even though the acting itself is bad, it's just a sign of the times. It's always good for a laugh, Interesting though, the show decided not to make all the cryptids bad in these found footages. Of course, most of them had malicious malintent for whoever they were attacking. Some actually helped out the humans. One of the examples is actually Bigfoot. The Bigfoot actually, and I'm not making this up, murdered a poacher who tried to hurt the main protagonist of the episode. Also, you are not getting away with that comment. I love foxes. You're not seeing this video, I know, but if you do, yeah, you're not getting away. I'm putting you in the spotlight right now. So we have a found footage series about Bigfoot and other cryptids, and the Bigfoot murdered a poacher that tried to hurt the person recording the found footage. Thank you, Animal Planet. Thank you so much. I needed this. Something else intriguing that the Lost Tapes added in the middle of the seasons was a group called the Enigma Corporation. They were introduced in the middle of the third season. And before this group was introduced, there was no main overarching story. It was just disconnected events that were cataloged. But once they added the Enigma Corporation, the show changed. The corporation was a private security firm specializing in unusual cases. Noel Connor and Elise Mooney were the 2 main people from this corporation. This corporation was almost like the SCP Foundation. They would go out and try to, secure and contain and document these strange cryptids that were harming people or terrorizing people in the woods. It was all very story-like. Noel and Elise would actually go on to investigate the serpent god, zombies, and vampires. And after, watching these episodes and footage from it, you can really see that the showrunners took a lot of inspiration from the SCP Foundation, like I just mentioned. I mean, there's men in black that are used in the Enigma Corporation to go out and contain these wild beasts that are known but not really known. But I think it's pretty cool. Animal Planet doesn't usually delve into the horror aspect of things, so it's pretty unique to see them branch out. Now, in the specific zombie episode, one of the creatures actually murdered a New Orleans boarding house owner, just crazy. And of course, Connor and Mooney are called in to investigate with the Enigma Corporation and want to unravel this mystery behind the death of the boarding house owner. They go on to find a bunch of zombies living in another boarding house, and the footage is just strange and unnerving of all these cryptids. Like, you've been seeing the footage, and I mean, just looking at it, the masks and the makeup and the effects have this weird uncanniness to it. I mean, it was early 2000s CGI on a relatively low budget, but even then, it's still just weird and strange to see these things in action. And it wasn't like these Lost Tape episodes were very kid-friendly and TV-friendly. Like, there was some real bad stuff that happened in these individual episodes. Like in the Lizard Man episode, 2 of the characters in the reenactment are found dead and partially eaten by the Lizard Man. And obviously you saw the Bigfoot that hung that poacher dude up by his feet, and the vampire that tried to attack children. Like, this was scary media. This was horrifying stuff that was being produced and watched. But the redeeming quality is that it never took itself too seriously. So it was able to breathe. It never was supposed to be this real documentary. It's more of a mockumentary, as they say. Even though the makeup and even though the effects were uncannily horrifying, quite frankly, people still found a way to enjoy them for what they were. And just looking at YouTube comments and modern day IMDb reviews, all of them look back on this footage series with fond memories. A lot of them say that it's very nostalgic from their childhood with their family. And again, like I Love Foxes says, this show made me have a crush on Bigfoot. Television will never be this good again. I love Lost Tapes. I know it's low budget, but it's something that I truly enjoy. It introduced me to so many cryptids that I never heard of. Loved watching the show as a kid. It's what got me into the whole world of unknown monsters and creatures. This is literally one of my comfort shows. It was my favorite show as a kid, and I binge watched the individual episodes on YouTube like 4 times. I hope we get another series like this in the future. From HBO Max, Paramount Plus, a streaming service that can create other found footage cryptic monster series. Because this was such an awesome show. This was both scary and cool when I was in my late teens. Both the vampire and the Wendigo episodes were the scariest for me. This show aged better than I thought it would. Still really enjoyable. Those are just a few comments from like modern day, like a year ago on YouTube. And I think it's pretty wholesome that a show like this that aired so long ago in the early 2000s can still be well received and look back on with a smile by people in the modern times. It's kind of like the wholesome beginnings of the found footage horror genre. And for what it is, I love it, dude. Like, seriously. I'm not going to claim that I watched it when I was a kid because I don't really remember doing it. My parents said that they watched it with me, but I don't remember it. But after rewatching these episodes now while making this video, I can genuinely say this was a great show. Something about it, and I agree with these commenters, it's like very comforting. It's a very comforting show, very cozy, you could say. And I 100% recommend you to watch it right now. These episodes had real storylines as you get further and deeper into the Lost Tape series. Not just footage, investigation, conclusion. Some of them were crazy, like ritualistic killing. Crazy. The firm digs into a sadistic Mexican cult that was responsible for a string of gut-wrenching murders. Specifically, ritualistic murders. Ooh. Anyways, this cult would carve out the hearts of their victims, and the team's investigation would eventually lead them to something called the Serpent God, which apparently this cult was worshipping. And as is typical for all these Lost Tape episodes, they all would end in a cliffhanger to kind of get you back for the next one. And these things are really like YouTube videos. They start crazy, they end crazy, just to bring you back. It's worth noting, though, that 2 of the episodes I mentioned today were the highest rated in the entire series, those being the zombie and the vampire episodes. Unfortunately, in these 2 episodes, this was really the only time that the viewers got to see the Enigma Corporation in full action. I mean, those 2 episodes followed them specifically, and they ended up being the highest rated and most well-received episodes. But since they were recorded in advance, the firm, couldn't go back and reshoot more, so they didn't know that the audience would like them so well. But now that we're on the topic of audience reception, let's dive into how these found footage episodes were taken. Generally speaking, Lost Tapes received unfavorable reviews from critics and from fans alike, and it averages a 6.1 rating on IMDb. As with most things, though, the show is either praised or it's roasted online. There's no in between, especially on the IMDb website. It's either 1 out of 10, 9 out of 10, and there's literally nothing in between. One of the negative reviews, it's a 1 out of 10, reads like this. This is bad. Being a fan of found footage, I was excited to hear about this. Man, was I disappointed. First of all, the stories involved to present the episodes are utterly rubbish, cliched, written by talentless, uninspired people. Secondly, the people involved in presenting the script, it'd be an insult to real actors and actresses to call them anything else, do a job beyond terrible in their attempt to give any credibility. Furthermore, the special effects are virtually non-existent. Noise, mostly. Some recycled grunts and growls, which honestly are laughable at times. The visual effects are found in the form of half-a-second blurry shapes, or extremely poor CGI, of something that could be anything. These things are so undefined, and I suspect this is due to the fact that they have bad effects, not an effort to make everything more mysterious. I didn't find this scary at all, but quite boring. It is pretty simple. The show contains no visual stimuli, which would create fear, and the noises are ridiculous. And as I previously said, perhaps little children could get scared. The atmosphere and or psychological factor are both non-existent. So it sounds like this guy's just a real dandy guy to have at a party, perhaps. Totally. Also, did you even watch the same show that I did, bro? What are you talking about? There's plenty of visual stimuli, and the majority of episodes are scary. Did you see the vampire episode? On the other hand, this reviewer gave it an 8 out of 10 and sung its praise. Ridiculously entertaining at its best and its worst. Lost Tapes is one of the most inconsistent shows I've ever seen in my life. On its best episodes, it's one of the scariest and most well-made horror shows ever made. On its worst episodes, it's equivalent to the very worst of the Sci-Fi Channel's schlock in terms of the effects and acting. That said, good or bad, Lost Tapes is never boring. Whether screaming in horror, okay, maybe not screaming, but jumping or getting a major case of goosebumps, or laughing in hysterics, Lost Tapes is almost always an insanely fun watch. The episodes are all 30-minute found footage shorts that have been spliced with background info and particular cryptids, Bigfoots, aliens, werewolves. The subtlety of the scares in the better episodes was surprising. Many times the monster itself will never fully be revealed, but merely heavily teased via shots of its shadow and its eyes or distinguishing features. It uses your imagination to terrify you, never revealing its monsters, but giving you enough information for your brain to conjure up something more terrifying than the best of the effects can produce. As you can see, it's either one or the other. Of course, those are just IMDb critics. There were actual critics that reviewed the series, and of course, they got mad at it and talked trash about it, sadly. Like this guy with his own website said, "A lot of this is outright bollocks, and Animal Planet should be accused of repacking a horror sci-fi show as an animal documentary." But, to his credit, he did say there's a ghost story around the campfire charm about this show that has an intrigued audience, which I can understand and relate to. However you feel about it, I think it's pretty cool that Animal Planet, of all things, produced a semi-convincing horror found footage series on TV in the early 2000s, before the internet really took found footage to the next step. I mean, think about it now. There's the Backrooms found footage, there's SCP found footage, there's Blair Witch Project, 1, 2, and more sequels coming out. There's Wreck, there's I See You. There's tons of these different found footage movies that have come out, but these are full-on productions in the current times. For a TV show to try something like this in the early 2000s, that takes guts, and I respect Animal Planet for doing it. And these reviews where they say it's got this charm to it, I completely agree. It's very campy, but it's also entertaining. The best way I can describe it is it's like a Wendigoon. You know how Wendigoon's videos are not at all very, very high quality? They're well researched, but the actual visuals are not amazing. But Wendigoon is the star of it. And that's exactly what these found footage episodes are like. They're not the most glamorous things, but the actual meat to the content is so entertaining and intrinsically engaging that you cannot hate it. At least I can't. But then again, I am biased because I do like found footage stuff. But this was just such an ambitious show to put out with no prior popularity except the Blair Witch movie. I highly encourage you to go watch the entire series, as I can't show, the whole episodes here. That would get copyrighted, of course. But if you're bored and if you want to just watch some stuff with a few friends, and maybe drink some Dr. Pepper, I don't know. This is definitely something you should watch. It is 100% entertaining, and you should check it out. While there never will be a 4th season of Lost Tapes, we should appreciate what Animal Planet did and what Go Go Lucky Entertainment tried to do. Even though it wasn't perfect, it was still insane. And that's what we can appreciate it for. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video about the random found footage series that Animal Planet conjured up in the early 2000s. I loved going over this. I loved looking into it. The videos and special effects are just awesome. And I literally cannot believe something like this existed back then, and I didn't know about it until now. So hopefully you enjoyed it. I couldn't show too much footage in the video because I didn't want to get copyright struck, because TV stuff is weird about YouTube stuff. You know how it is. But thank you for watching to the end of the video. If you did find yourself enjoying the video, or if you got like a kick out of it or something, drop a like. It helps the channel out, helps the channel grow. And I thank you so much for watching. And go check out the description if you want to see my main channel, or my Twitter, my Instagram, anything else. I ran out of things to say. Well, I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace.